All right, welcome back. It's been a minute. When is the last time we did a podcast?
It's been a few months now.
I think it's been like 5 months.
5 months? Well,
That we were all gung ho at a two-year hiatus.
yeah, every once in a while you
that's all
gotta
right.
take a breath, regroup.
All right, yeah, we're here with Corey Deacon. Yeah, thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely, man. That was such a good time last time. I couldn't pass it up.
Yeah, so I guess maybe just for some people that didn't listen to the last one, crowned on you and yeah, what you're all about.
Yeah, well, I have been in the health, natural medicine, medical sciences realm for a while. Started my studies in 2008, so, 16 years, I guess. Have a private clinic up in Canada, in Calgary, Nirvana Health. And our focus is centered around the nervous system, and really working with like looking at what the nervous system has been showing us about our nature. And as we've grown, I've probably analyzed 30,000 brain maps now, MRI data, biomedical data. We have a team of 5 doctors now. And, as we've kind of transitioned our understanding, starting to really learn what is the inputs that are underneath of human suffering, right? And I think like one of the best ways to measure that on the medical side of things is diagnoses, disorders, conditions. But there's a big limitation to that because, we're looking at a massive amount, database of up to 4,000 symptoms of things that can feel uncomfortable to us. And then from that, you extend out to 26,000 different diagnosed conditions. It gets highly complex. You're so zoomed in on all these little things. And when you use the intellect to look at it, you find yourself really lost in the chemistry and the physiology and the gene pathways and the how do we manipulate this in just the right way to get this outcome we desire, which is, remission or healing, but what we've learned is that unless you deal with the inputs that are leading to that diagnosed condition or things that can go wrong with us, you're just medicating symptoms at best. And there's this process that I've really I have continual practice of like listening to what is showing up in my reality. And I think it really bridges in Carl Jung, Jungian psychologist, Jungian psychology founder, his work in metaphor and symbolism and the depth of our psyche and the depth of what we're actually creating. And then it starts like sending you into these teachings of like Buddha and Krishna and Jesus and it's like what's that like essence of what they're saying. And I think for me, I've always been somebody who's questioned everything. I mean, my parents, used to say like, you never shut up. It was like, well, why? Well, what for? Well, how does that work? And, it's funny. I even remember like sitting in the back of the car at a young age and like just my dad getting like aggravated to the point of like, dude, I can't give you the answer to this. I don't know. So yeah, it's been pretty wild. And with COVID was such a catalyzing factor for me because we started seeing, human suffering hit an absolute peak of like what that I've never seen before. Like I thought that we were already in an epidemic of chronic health disease and suffering before that. And then, that happened. I think that was when we did our last podcast. And it was so illuminating. And, in the midst of it, it was interesting because I was really questioning like what are we doing, like I'm just have this flood of people coming in, this like psychological distress and physical distress and COVID injury and a COVID vaccine injury and it was just like trying to find like what way is up and it was funny because I got back to, and I hear people say this a lot in their healing journey of like, I feel like I'm back to where I was 10 years ago. That was exactly what happened to me. It would have been March, April of 2022. And I was just done, man. It was like watching this like suffering, and I didn't know how to help people anymore. Like the protocols we were doing that were helping people just weren't. And yeah, I was just like, like I was just kind of took a step back and I was like, what's the point of this? What is the point of any of this anymore? Like, and I actually almost took my life when I was 19, and it was the exact same like vibration coming back through, and it was like, man, like, and it was funny, I talk about like serendipity. I had a friend reach out to me that I hadn't talked to in 8 years. I met her in Nicaragua, when I was on a little bit of a excursion after my bachelor's degree down through Central America, and randomly reaches out to me on social media and says, "Hey, like I was really called to reach out. Like, what's going on? How you doing?" Like, honestly, not good. Like I'm just so done with this reality, like the control, the power, the fear that and she goes, well, we're a group of us are doing a ceremony out in Vancouver. Like, you want to come? And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I might not be here in 2 weeks, so why not? Let's do it. So yeah, I went out there, and it was so funny because we're sitting in the ceremony, and it was really welcoming group of people. I felt really comfortable, and getting ready to drop in, and they start going on about God and Jesus, and I'm the scientist. I'm just like, come on, man, like I don't care about that. Just give me the medicine. Like I want to. And I had never sat with this particular ceremony was psilocybin and MDA, which is similar to MDMA, and I never sat like ceremonially with it, right? I'd obviously recreational use and stuff like that, and yeah, so it's funny. I dropped in, and pretty quickly there was this like experience of this like black hill that was moving at me, and it hit me, and it was like it wasn't physical discomfort or emotional discomfort or intellectual discomfort. It was like existential discomfort. It was like, oh my God, it went through me, and I was like, whoa, what was that? And then another one came that was bigger, and almost like I thought that it was like that was gonna be too much, and it hit me and went through, and I was like, oh. And then this mountain came. It was like 10 times the size of the second one, and I just immediately was like, oh God, no, I can't. And it was this voice came through, and it was just like, it's okay, you don't have to go there if you don't want, but if you do, I promise all the stuff you're dealing with is gonna be laughable. All this the way you're like just like, and it was funny because it wasn't the idea that like the suffering that I was in would be removed. It was the you don't have to go there that provoked me. It was like anytime anybody ever says that to me, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny. So I just was like, I need a minute though. Like, just give me a couple minutes, and kind of like relaxed into it. And right as I was kind of like, okay, it came at me, and I didn't even feel any discomfort. I was just in this place, and it was like a state where all of a sudden I was seeing everything in this way that I could have never imagined. It was redirecting my vision on COVID and the nature of our reality. And here, look at it this way. Like you're looking at it, and yeah, you're seeing certain things, but you're looking through fear. And it was like it was showing me the snag I had was like, how do I help people? And like how do I help people get better from COVID, and what is happening. And it was funny because it's like, look at all the power that you're giving this, and it just took me to this higher level and went, do you think any of that matters? Like, here's who you are. And it was just so profound. It took me a while getting into the experience to realize that it was like literally Christ, but it was not in the way of like this person, but in this energy, and it was just so clear. And I remember I was laughing, I was swearing, I was like, it was so wild. And they kept coming up to me. We were all blindfolded, and they had eye mask on, and they kept coming up to me and saying like, you gotta quiet down, like you gotta quiet. I'm like, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. Like this is wild. Like, oh, I'm seeing so clear, and I came out of the ceremony, and it was funny because I was looking around at everybody, and everyone was just kind of like packing their stuff up and kind of chatting, and I'm like, eyes wide, like that nobody saw what I saw. I like, and I remember laying in bed that night, and I literally could see, it was like my mind was this computer program, and I was just getting like, code was getting like deleted. It's like XXXXX, and then other stuff was getting consolidated. It was like these check marks, and it was just like I came to realize that like the mind is this artificial intelligence device that we've programmed through our responses and through our thoughts and what we give truth to. And it took so long for me to integrate this experience, but I was up all night, and it was just watching my brain, just like my mind just getting rewritten. And then I just went through the wildest, still kind of in it, like 2.5 years of understanding, and my reality just completely changing. Like I was in a marriage that I wasn't seeing before all of this, was like incredibly unhealthy, trauma bonded, and it was great, it was perfect, it was sacred in the way that it helped me see myself and actually what I was projecting in my being. And very quickly I realized that I needed to leave that. It wasn't promoting growth anymore. And yeah, and then I ended up meeting my now wife like a month and a half later, and it was just unimaginable. I could have never imagined there was somebody like her in the world. And it's, I say to this day, like we talked, and I knew her in the field that we were in for 8 years, but never connected with her in that way. And we hadn't talked since the beginning of COVID because there hadn't been a conference. And we sat down the last night of this conference in Orlando, which is actually where we met initially, and we started talking. It was this like feeling I've never felt before, and it was exactly like the feeling I had in the ceremony after I broke through this mountain, whatever that was. And it was like you're seeing things the exact way I'm seeing them. I didn't think there was another person in the world that was seeing things this way. And obviously her, Ashley.
Yeah.
And then I come to find out, like, oh, her clinic is doing the exact same things that our clinic is. No idea that she was on the same track. And yeah, it's just been like event after event like that. And what I've come to understand is that we're incredibly powerful, and everybody talks about how powerful our mind is. But when you understand the physics that are happening around magnetic and gravitational fields, which is what our heart is, you understand that we're creating our reality through being. And this was what, this awareness that came through was so clear and showing me, was like, you're creating all of this. You're creating all of this agony, this suffering, this pain that you think the world is putting on you. You're the one creating it. You weren't seeing that was what was happening, right? And so now my practice has changed a lot in terms of recognizing, like, before, the way that I was working with people was like, okay, how do we take your pain away? How do we take your suffering away? What can we give you? What can we, what therapies can we do to take your pain away? And now it's like, why is this pain showing up? What's it showing you? And how are you creating it?
Mm-hmm.
And all of it is leading us back to ourselves. And when I say leading us back to ourselves, like leading us back to our true nature, the eternal nature that we are, right? And so that's this like challenge of being in a human experience as an eternal being, right? And the idea of that is like not new, right? We've had many masters, many teachers tell us this. The difference is, how do we embody it, right? How do I embody my eternal nature? And that is what I've now sort of transformed how I've been helping guide people, is bringing them back to themselves. And this is where plant medicine and psychedelics and stuff are so powerful because it's not me telling you something. It is you getting the innate inner intelligence, inner wisdom that's always been there.
Yeah.
But it's been clouded by this intoxicated mind that has been intoxicated by the content of experience. The stories, beliefs, and ideas from what I call a fragmented consciousness. We call it ego, right? It's like ego is this like bad thing. And it's like, it's not bad. It's just recognizing the limitations of it in that it only understands memory in this crystallized experience, like from when I was born to now. That's what ego has access to, right? So it's like when you recognize the limitations of that, you also recognize that thoughts and stories and ideas that come up may seem true because they're familiar, but it's really questioning that, like, is that true, right? So yeah, it's really transformed to the point of like seeing that we're the technology and we're the medicine. We just need to learn how to wield it. We just need to learn how to access it, and that's something I'm deeply practicing every day, and helping others see, like, we can go beyond the clinical, well beyond the clinical, to recognize that everything that we use for therapy is just mimicking and mirroring what we already have within us. And we might maybe go into more details on that as we go. But so yeah, it's been an incredible journey last few years.
Totally.
Yeah, it's a big start.
It's a lot to take in. Holy.
Definitely a lot has changed. I can tell in the way you're even presenting it right now to us, like you said in your practice there. So that's kind of interesting to hear how you said you kind of went from trying to treat a issue with something, I don't know, medicinal or otherwise or therapeutic, to now I guess the thing that I thought was most interesting out of that was hearing you say we need you to figure out the answer almost, or at least that's what I took out of it. Because whenever somebody tries talking to me about going to, let's say, therapy or something like that, right? A lot of it is, I already know what you're going to say. Like, I can pretty much tell myself the same thing that, not you, but that the therapist or whatever might tell me, because we've learned it, we've experienced it, we've heard other people go through this stuff, so I can tell myself that. But you telling me it isn't going to do me any good, I need to figure that out on my own somehow, right?
Well, and you need to be called to it, right? And you're already given the medicine that you need in every single moment. Your mind is just too intoxicated to see it sometimes, right? And so when somebody provokes anger in me, the intoxicated mind says, this is bad. This person made me angry. Now I'm going to create a story about how that person is the problem, right? And I'm not going to look at what it provoked in me. And that's the deferral of responsibility. And it's something that we've gotten into complete insanity culturally in this, of like, I want to pass the buck, right? Yeah. So what's showing up in my reality, no, that's not on me. That's that person. But we're not looking at what it's provoking in us, because everything that unfolds is showing us ourselves. Yeah. And what we're embodying, what I am embodying, what I am being, right? And so you see this with people with like repressed anger.
Oh, sorry, I just kind of want to get a little clarity on that there, maybe for other people and myself. Like, when you're saying you're pointing the finger at the other person as having provoked something in you, and you're saying you need to look again back at yourself of what provoked that. You're not saying that the other person didn't play some sort of role in that experience or something,
but you can only manage your own manage your own expectations. Yeah.
Well, and again, if I'm eternal and I'm not this Corey character, I'm more than that. Why do I take anything that anybody else has to say personally?
Right.
I don't. The awakened heart is fully open, right? Fully open to allow it all. It doesn't mean I tolerate it all, right? But if something provoked me out of my place of stoic peace, which is the truth of my eternal nature, it's showing me where I'm not embodying that. So it's a gift. I
Yeah.
actually look at that person and go, thank you. Thank you for reflecting where I'm still not embodying my true nature.
Yeah.
And now I look deeper at myself to go, okay, what do I need to let go of? Because
Yeah.
the whole process of becoming nobody, becoming who you really are, is letting go. Because we're already that which we are. But what happens is we start identifying as things we aren't, right? Like a thought, right? Like, oh, something unfolds and oh, that means that I fucked up, right? Does it? Right? What does that is really like, let's look deeper at it. And every time that you'll see where there's a temptation to grab guilt or shame, if you take a step back and you look more in depth at it, it's almost like more going like psychedelic about it. It's like you're seeing what's below the surface and you go, oh my gosh, that was serving me and that other person so deeply, right? But I'm the only one who can actually take that message and do it. My responsibility is not on the other side. All I can do is go, okay, what did that reflect for me? And how can I use that to help guide me? And this is where, you know, it's funny. People talk about like how it's all love, right? It's all love. It's funny because it's true, because everything is showing you yourself, right? And so I get to use that as a gift of like, okay, this is showing up in my reality. Here is my reactivity to that. Oh, that's showing me where I'm not being my true self, right? Because my true self is fully open-hearted, taking nothing personally, right? So as soon as I take anything personally, well, I'm gonna, first of all, there's gonna be fear, and then I can use anger to try to get power back, or I feel guilt and shame, which is also not true. It's not completely untrue, but it's not full truth, right? Because I'm not bad and I didn't do anything bad. I'm learning, right? I'm learning how to embody my true nature. And I really believe that's like part of the challenge of Earth is like, how do I remember who I am and then be that, right? And so if I'm creating my reality from a place of being, anything that comes up that doesn't feel good is showing me where I'm being that very thing. And I can lie to myself. And this is the thing with humans is we're so good at lying to ourselves. We lie to ourselves all the time, right? Oh, I felt this thing, but no, that's not that. No, I don't need to look at that, right?
Or it can be the opposite too.
Of
Like it can be something good happens and you can tell yourself it's not good, right?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're just constantly not allowing ourselves to just be truthful and honest with what's showing up in our reality. Because again, culturally, we've been told that certain things are good and other things aren't, right? So like, it's not good to be angry. Well, actually, sometimes like anger is a spectrum of who we are. It's a part. And so if we disconnect from that part, we're not whole anymore. We're fragmented, right? And anger, like since I've been doing a really good job the last few years of integrating that anger, allowing it, and it's actually a place where I can speak very what's the word I'm looking for? I can really speak to things that sometimes other people will be hesitant to say, right? Like when I see something that's not serving somebody, I have that ability to just be able to speak to it and you know, be like, dude, like I see what you're doing, I get it, and also I see where you're embodying a lie, you're buying an illusion, right? I had a friend recently, had a great talk about how he was sort of hoarding money and sort of like he didn't want to like really put the money out there that he, you know, was like, oh, okay, this person for this, and oh, there was some groceries that needed to be paid for here, and you know, this person was helping me out here, but oh, they were just helping me out, and so okay, perfect, I can keep my. But what he didn't see is that he was embodying scarcity, right? The only reason that I would hold on to something is because I feel like I'm not going to get more of it.
All right.
And that's a lie, because the universe is infinitely abundant. So that's not serving him, right? It wasn't easy for me to say, but having that like little bit of like anger bubbled up in me, and it was like, oh, he needs to hear this. This actually needs to be said, and it's not easy to say because culturally it's like, oh, I want to help this guy out. Well, I'm not helping him out by allowing him to keep hoarding and staying in this scarcity mindset, because he's going to keep creating scarcity for himself.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's as I've settled into that, and this is something that my journey is kind of taking me down. My wife and I bought a Sprinter van, and we drove down to Costa Rica, got married in November, and did like a 9-month trip, and we ended up at a vision quest in Nicaragua, where we sat with ayahuasca. And I actually sat for 2 days in the jungle, no food, no water. And it was incredible. Like it showed me how all showing up in my awareness. And that's the funny thing about these medicines. And like I even call music medicine, so just bear with me, it's like but it's showing us it's already there. And I think some people are like so afraid to go into, especially psychedelics, of like, okay, well, like, am I going to lose my mind? Am I going to lose myself? Like, what's going to happen in there, right? It's like, no, you're just going to get clarity. You're going to see, and again, it's not going to be anything necessarily new. It's just going to click in a way that you hadn't seen before. And you're going to realize that awareness was always there. You just weren't necessarily listening to it, or you were letting the mind distract you from it, or you were letting the mind kind of distort it in a way in how it was coming through, or make it overly personal, or try to protect against it. And and so that was ayahuasca. It was so funny. Like the first time I sat with it, I could not believe the clarity. It was the greatest teacher that I've ever sat with before. It just like it was showing me where I was running judgment patterns, and it was so funny. It was like it would bring a scene, and I remember this one scene that it brought to me was this guy, this like young guy, super buff, like chiseled, and he's on the beach, and I had an immediate judgment of that guy, who that guy was.
Yeah.
And then the scene unfolded further and showed me this guy was like feeding the homeless and like helping people like see themselves and playing music. And it was a complete opposite of what my initial mind's judgment was. And then it crashed the scene. Went, see what happened there? See that judgment? You were so clear in that judgment that was the guy, this guy was this, right? And it was like, do you see how wrong you were? And it just kept breaking me down. It was so amazing until I could watch a scene and I didn't have any judgment that ran up against it. I just witnessed it for what it was. And it was just like, this is always happening. And you in your judgment, which by the way is all self-judgment. It's all, it's self-judgment projected outward, right? But it's stifling your reality. It's causing you to avoid the very things that you need to lean into. And it's causing you to lean into the things that you ought to be turning away from.
Yeah.
And how many times a day do you make a judgment like that, right?
Well, and I'm just curious. So this brings it to light to you. How do you bring this to practice in reality? Like you come out of this ceremony or trip, whatever you want to call it, and you've now understand, okay, I've got I have to wash this judgment away. How do you actually
integrate
practice that? How do you not let yourself slip back into, or how do you even make that first step to not be so be the way you are?
Beautiful question. You stop investing in it. And so this is where people get, have you ever heard of the term pay attention? Pay attention. Deeper than you think.
Yeah.
Attention is a currency. Where your attention goes, energy flows. So you need to look at with judgment is not to stop it from happening, because you won't be able to.
Okay.
It's too deeply wired to stop it. And this is what most people who get into meditation and stuff, they want to stop the mind. Shut it off. Yeah. My goal is to shut the mind off. Good luck. You're not going to be able to. But what you can do is you can't control the mind, but you don't need to let the mind control you. And this is with judgment as an example. I just need to get to the point where I'm aware when I'm judging. I'm aware when judgment comes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's that judgment. Now, if I grab that judgment and go, oh yeah, Chris is XYZ, and right, and I go, yeah, that's it, right? And then I grab that and I hold that.
Yeah.
I'm investing in it,
And everything that is then you and me involved around it, you've already made this story up, and it's just building off of that.
Exactly, right? So and then I'm wiring judgment further. I'm further consolidating judgment, right? But if I get the judgment pattern runs and it goes, Chris is a blank, and I go, nice try, and I just let it blow through like another wind, it won't wire itself in. I start pulling my investment away.
Yeah.
And that's the trick. And so we catch ourselves when we're in these places, right?
Yeah.
And again, generally it's going to create a discomfort in the body if you grab it and run with it too long. And this is the thing for anybody that I see with a chronic disease, is they've grabbed a story that's a lie for so long that the body has started breaking down.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. Like you talk like heaven and hell, really all that is the truth and the lie, the truth and the illusion, right? It's burning in hell is, but it's interesting because we have all these little organelles, and this was when we talked last, we talked a lot about these mitochondria.
Yeah.
And they're so essential to coupling us into the quantum field, which we now understand the zinc spark at fertilization. There's this massive release of light that happens. Where this light comes from is it rises from the quantum field, and then it couples, it's bonded into matter. This is what Einstein died trying to figure out, was how general relativity coupled with quantum gravity. And all he had to do was look at biology and he would have seen it. So we are light that comes out of the quantum field and bonds into mass. And then we start building this body, right? So the might in the quantum field, and they're basically coupling us to the quantum field, and then they are promoting a certain gene expression pattern that is developing our cells and our cell behavior. So if I am embodying fear is about the furthest from truth you can get. Well, aside from shame, I'm bad. It's the complete opposite of who we really are. We are love. But if I'm in fear, I'm embodying fear. The mitochondria are listening to that. They're just sculpting based on what I'm embodying. So, fear. Okay, so now we're basically creating friction in the quantum field. We're creating heat, right? And so instead of the mitochondria being aligned and making light, they start making inflammation. And this is the heaven hell, fire, light, right? It's happening all in the cellular biology. And so if you don't deal with that, if you don't deal with what somebody's embodying and how they're creating their own illness, you can get all of the best herbs and nutraceuticals and peptides and all that stuff can help show the body the way. But if you're not shifting that, they're just going to keep creating the same disease for themselves. And so that's the radical responsibility of like, how am I creating this? And not everybody's going to love to hear this because they still want to stay in the victim story, right? Which again is a lie. And I'm happy to help point that out for people, because it's not loving to let you bully yourself into a victim mentality.
Yeah.
Because you're suffering, like you're going to create suffering for yourself because it's a lie. You're so much more powerful than that, right? To be influenced by the external world is again, when you really see it for what it is, you see the insanity that we're living in collectively for the most part, you know. I think we're moving out of it, and I believe there is something really, really cool happening on Earth right now, where we're waking up to our true nature, but we're still not there. Like there's a lot of people that are still trying to, even the idea of controlling your reality is insane because you're the one creating it. So you keep trying to control the pixels on the TV screen that are coming in, right? Or like I say, is like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's like, if you're not shifting your embodiment, it's gonna show up in a different way. right? But you're going to keep calling in new ways to have to feel like you need to control.
Yeah.
And it's Groundhog Day. It's absolute Groundhog Day, right? And this is why people in like psychiatric illness and stuff suffer so badly, because it's just a constant Groundhog Day, right? So
Yeah. Well, like I don't know how to articulate this, but yeah, this kind of comes full circle because one of the things I want to talk to you about was like, I don't know, over these past few weeks, I've been kind of like wrestling with what is heaven and hell essentially. And I kind of came to the conclusion that it was like, okay, there's like good and evil, things that are serving you and things that are taking you away from your higher self. So I guess that kind of, I don't know, that kind of resonates with me, that everything you just said. It's like things that are serving you or things that are not serving you.
So, yeah, and I think, you know, the piece with evil too is, it's like it's live backwards.
Yeah.
It's a mirrored inverse truth of life, right? So when we encounter evil or the demonic or, you know, whatever it is, it's another guidepost, because where we're still buying that insanity is showing us where we're pulling ourselves from our true nature. So that this is why I say the awakened heart just is open to allow it all, right? I don't need to figure out what's evil or good. It's not, it's a little bit of a misnomer, because it's just, again, it's just the turning away from the truth is going to start, you're going to start seeing more evil show up in your field. And it's just, oh, okay, and this is the truth of sin as well. Sin in Latin really just means to miss the mark. It doesn't mean I'm bad, you're going to hell. No, if you're missing the mark, you're already creating a hell for yourself of some form, right? So it's a guidepost of another sort. So you don't have to and like, oh, that's evil, I need to run from that, because even the very idea of avoiding evil is giving it power. Why would I avoid something that didn't have any power over me? I wouldn't. I would just go, oh, hey, what's up? You don't have any power over me. Yeah, sure, you can sit down, but I see you, right? I see where you're lost in the insanity, but it doesn't have any power over me, right?
Right.
And that's where you'll see like Christianity and stuff, like fundamental Christianity sometimes gets lost, because it's like they're rebuking all these things that, again, they're actually calling into their reality, right? Instead of looking at this stuff, they just keep running from it and avoiding it and rebuking it and exercising it. And it's like, you're creating it, you're allowing it, you're promoting it. And just the very fact that you want to run from it is consolidating it, and you're in fear. And then you keep creating that field of fear, right?
So you're saying you gotta pay attention to it, right? And
you gotta be aware.
You gotta be aware, but you can't feed into it. Like, is that essentially what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't
shy away from the bad things that are out there. They exist inside of yourself, right? But don't let it take over your life. So, like,
as soon as you do anything about it, you start consolidating it into your being, because you're giving it power, right? And this is, again, like how important it is to understand how the mind works, because the subconscious mind is very subliminal. It's like a dog, right? So if I'm really fearful, every time somebody walks by the front door, my dog's running, barking.
Yeah.
Right? Alert, alert! My master's not good. I need to take the lead, right? And if I get reactive at that, right, it's like, shut up, stop barking, right? What am I doing? I'm actually giving it truth. The truth is, I'm afraid and I'm trying to control, and it just worsens, and to the point where I'm physically assaulting my dog trying to get it to listen. And it just keeps consolidating it deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So the response is no response. It's be the witness. Be the witness of everything that's moving through. Curiosity, right? But I tell this to people too, like when we're dropping in ceremonies and stuff like that, is watch it like a movie. right? Like, so if we're the light of awareness, if the truth of who we are is the light of awareness, then we're not the environment, we're not the body, we're not the emotions, we're not the thoughts, we're not the sensations, we're not even the intuitive information that might be coming through. We're the witness to all of it. And I can't be aware of that which I am. And that's a concept in consciousness. And this is the idea of I am, right? Who are you? I don't know. I can't find this Corey guy anywhere. I just am.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just am, right? And I have all these experiences, and it's like people are like, yeah, I don't know, I'm a really anxious person. And it's like, yeah, person's anxious, but person's also intoxicated. You are not that person, right? And so it's also important of how we identify as the content, right? Because if I'm in a movie and it's like I'm getting like pulled into this amazing movie. It's like you guys seen Rings of Power? I got into Lord of the Rings of Power recently. It's
No, I haven't seen it.
and Tolkien, you know, and again, like this Lord of the Rings, it's an exact representation of what is happening in our psyche and collectively. But I'm in the movie, right? And, oh my God, but I'm not identifying as the movie. Right? It's like, oh, I watched this awesome thing. But what we tend to do is like, oh my God, I'm so anxious, or I'm so this, or I'm so tired, and we don't understand the power that we're giving to that, right? Instead of, imagine if we didn't have any memory of language or what anything meant, right? What would we think about stuff that came up that created what we call anxiety? We wouldn't think much of it. We'd just be like, oh, that was intense. Oh, you feel that? Right? Oh, and then we just keep going on about your day. It's like another wind blowing by. We don't know where it's going. We don't always know where it came from. But what it might be showing us is important, right? So yeah, it's that stoic center is just like, again, like if I'm an eternal being, how would an eternal being who is never born and will never die, who is witnessing this epic experience, like it is the most epic multi-dimensional movie you could ever imagine. That's what we find ourselves in. How would I respond to anything that happens, right? Open heart, curiosity, no fear. I wouldn't be afraid of anything, right? And that's the embodiment. And so what we learn, and we have to learn through experience. We can't, knowledge is only, as you said earlier, so importantly, yeah, the ayahuasca experience is like, how do you integrate that? Most important question, right? Because the knowledge, the awareness, and maybe an awareness of a state, and this is why I like plant medicine, is it shows us a state. It shows us a place of being that's closer to the truth of who we really are, so that we can recognize everything that's pulling us from that place in the first place in our reality. But we have to step back into our reality and go, okay, I have to change how I am responding to what's happening in my environment. And I need to be more willing to look at myself and my involvement in what's showing up in my reality, right? And especially as guys, we're so good at just like distracting, right? It's like, oh, this thing came up, and it's like, oh, and my wife reminds me of this all the time. It's like, oh yeah, honey, but that's just this, right? And you go to this story, that's just that, and keep going. It's like, no, you're not listening. And you're like, you're right. I'm not listening to what's under the words. I'm really, what she's saying is you're not feeling. You're not feeling, right? You've gotten so good at not feeling. And we, again, collectively, our culture especially, we just haven't allowed ourselves to feel. It's not okay to feel. Right, that's been a deep program, and so allowing ourselves to feel, and then when we let ourselves fully feel something, it removes the power that it has over us. So when I'm rewiring my brain, anything that I'm not allowing myself to fully feel sets the watchdog off, right? Because basically I'm saying, this isn't okay. I can't handle this. There's the watchdog now. Right? And now I'm pulled out of my true nature. I'm going into the cell danger response, which is the inflammation, the fire that my mitochondria are making, right? So when I allow myself to fully feel something, the watchdog goes, oh, well, last time something like that happened, we had to like get on high alert, but now master's actually not wavered. Okay, cool. Right? I don't need to go hypervigilant. I don't need to do anything. Okay. Okay, cool. We're just gonna chill, right?
Yeah.
And so that allows us to rewire, and all these memories and stories that we have that we've been protecting against can get rewired in terms of, again, like this AI. If you guys know how like machine learning works, right?
No.
You kind of.
I think it just learns.
Like,
It just learns from itself, or learns from information, right?
Yeah, so we, there's different types of machine learning, but the idea is that something is shown to the AI device machine, and then it's told something about that, right? So it's like, here's a picture, that's a cat, that's a dog, that's a cat, that's a dog, that's a cat. Eventually, with enough programming, it can tell a cat without even seeing the face of a cat. It's like, oh, it can tell just from the body. And that's exactly how our mind works, right? The machine learning was built off of understanding the neural architecture in our brain. So we're the ones that are creating the story, but it's in our response. And this is what people don't get. They think that we can just do it all up here, right? Oh, I want to manifest my reality, so I'm just going to think a lot about it. But what needs to happen is there has to be a response change. If there isn't a response change, so if I'm like, I'm eternal, I'm gonna keep giving myself more affirmations. I'm eternal. I'm love. And then the next thing, a bill comes in the mail and my bank account empties a little bit more. I'm like, oh my God, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I just consolidated the pattern that in fact is not true. And the subconscious mind, the watchdog, doesn't understand logic or reason or even language, really. There's a vibration to language that it can pick up on, but it's more important that's understanding response.
So
Right.
Is it kind of like asking yourself why? Like, why am I eternal before actually saying it?
Well, I think it's behaving in the way that an eternal being would, right?
Yeah.
If I am awareness, the truth of who I am is the light of awareness, then I don't nothing really needs to waver me. However, things will guide me, perhaps,
Yeah.
right? But it's not, again, it's not just, you can't just tell yourself.
Right.
It's not effective, right? You actually have to behave in your reality, and this is the embodied eternal nature. It's not just knowing. And this is what I was saying, is experience, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have even just that very intention of like, okay, I'm eternal, right? It's going to start changing your reality, and things are going to start coming up to show you where you have been embodying anything less than that, right? And then what do we freak out typically? Because like, oh my God, everything's changing, and oh my God, this is a lot, I can't feel this. And then we start wanting to grab the old self that's familiar again. And that's the cycling back again, right? Which is exactly what I did in 2022. I was cycling back to that old unintegrated self again.
The comfort.
Yeah, the soother, right? The pacifier. So yeah, it's and then there's things like, if I'm not able to fully feel something, I'll project it. It bubbles over and I project it. And so this is the thing with like anger. If I'm not able to fully feel anger and then act accordingly, because there's always something that needs to be expressed, right? I become resentful because I'm usually not expressing what keeps pinging in my awareness, and eventually it boils over. If I'm not able to fully feel something, I'll project it onto somebody else. I'll project anger at you, right? And so those are insights as well as to where we're not allowing ourselves to be fully honest with what's showing up in our reality.
Right.
And I am an absolute expert at lying to myself and lying about my reality. I'm getting bad. I'm getting a lot better. Definitely recovering in recovery. But yeah, it's all because all of that information is important, and that's the programming culturally that's gotten us really off track, is that some things are okay and some things aren't.
Yeah.
Right. And so then when something disturbing maybe shows up in my thoughts, right, I tuck it away. I pretend like it didn't even happen. And it keeps pinging, and it's like, hey, what is this, right? And a lot of times it's an unintegrated self. It's a part of the self that we've pushed away, or a part of ourselves that's been fragmented into a piece of the past, and this is trauma. Trauma is a part of our psyche has actually got itself stuck in the past, and it's reliving the past over and over and over again, but the content is different because now reality is this and this content. And this is where people with trauma get stuck, is they're embodying fear because of that instance, right? Something happened and there's a story that got created. I'm not safe, or the world's not safe, or people can't be trusted, or blah, blah, blah. And so I'm in a constant state of fear. And guess what? I keep creating that reality. So people talk about trauma triggers and stuff, right? It's like, oh, I'm so triggered. I just keep getting so triggered. Everybody, I need to get space from these triggers. Well, you're not going to be able to. You're the one creating them.
That's so true.
You have to allow yourself to fully feel the trigger, because it's actually the trauma that's reintegrating, right? And anytime you keep circling back on trauma, or you keep getting triggered by it, is because you haven't extracted the wisdom from that experience. You're still not seeing it clearly. You're not seeing it for what it was, right? And this is oftentimes it leads us back to the fact that the only reason that somebody would do something devastating, like, I mean, sexual assault and murder and even physical assault and stuff like that, is because they're already in torment in themselves, right? Yeah. I have no need to ever harm anybody. I couldn't even ever imagine it. Although in my past, when I was drinking and was tortured myself, I was getting in fights all the time. Totally. It was just a projection of the pain that was already within me, right? And so part of getting back to yourself and defragmented from trauma is fully feeling the trauma, which is already happening, by the way. It's already showing up in your reality. You don't have to go back and grab it and do it. It's already unfolding. And eventually, when you can fully see the person who is the perpetrator, the pain that they're in, and have compassion, you're free. And then you're gonna see the gift that it was for you, and then you're free. And then you don't care about what happens anymore, because even those really terrible, quote unquote terrible things that happened were a gift. And that was me. Like I not actually very long ago had a sexual trauma come up when I was 3 years old. And I was molested by a woman, and it was, my whole body felt it. Like I was back there again. And all of a sudden, so much of my life made sense. So much of my life made sense. Where I was giving power to women, where I was constantly in obligation to women and meeting their needs and wants and everything and it was so wild. And it was funny, because I started seeing where, when I got to be like 17, 18, 19, where I was like, I don't even know who I am. I don't know who this guy is. I don't feel, I'm panicking every day. I'm depressed. I'm like, and that was when I got to the point of like almost taking my life. But in all of that, and, panic attacks every day for 18 months, feeling like I was losing my mind, having delusions. Now at the point where I'm at is like, I see the purpose in it all. It's like, I wouldn't be able to do what I do had I not gone through all of that. Somebody sits across from me and says like, I just don't want to live anymore. I'm like, yeah, I know the exact feeling, man. It's not like, oh, I can't imagine how that was. Like, no, I know, I get it. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in the cycle of addiction. Yeah. Get that too. Right. So it's seeing it for the gift that it was, is like, there's a purpose to all of that unfolded for me. And seeing again, any perpetrator that I thought was a perpetrator was just helping bring me back to myself, and was also just reflecting their own pain. So again, then all of a sudden there's absolutely nothing to protect against. There's nothing to defend. It's just being and watching what unfolds with this epic joy and peace. And so that, to me, what I've learned through working with people now, and just like really listening to what their struggles are and what they're looking for, everybody is just looking for that which they already are. It's the funniest thing. People think that it's like, I need the anxiety to go away, I need the pain to go away, I need the fatigue to go away. And then once all that happens, I'll be free.
Yeah, that's always, and then this, and then that.
And it's always another thing, right? And it's like, no, actually, all you're looking for is your true nature. And these things that are showing up are just showing up because you're not embodied in your true nature. And when you get back to that place, all that other stuff isn't going to matter anyway. And so yeah, it's been a really funny and just like humbling process, and just like paradox and irony, and then just like, man, God has a sense of humor, because it's just, we're looking for that which we already are, and we're looking everywhere but where we need to be looking.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's
So-
ironic.
Like, obviously, you can't come to this perspective or this light overnight. Like, it's not just a light switch that you can just turn
You can't
and
just take a pill and
decide
yeah.
to look at things differently, look at yourself differently. Like, is it a lifelong journey then from this point on to get that way, or was it a 9-month road trip that really cemented it in? What, obviously each person would be unique in this situation, but how long would you say it takes an average person to kind of feel that flip from that person who is a ball of anxiety and depression and addiction to the person just who is?
As long as it takes.
There is no, like,
I mean, for me, it's been my whole life.
yeah.
It started when my heart started beating,
Yeah.
and so it was just as I started waking up to, like, wait a minute, something's not right here, to now, has been a 13-year process, that has been rapidly sped up since Easter 2022, which was the ceremony, rapidly. So it takes as long as it takes, it's, but it's a dedication. It's like there's like a constant dedication to know thyself. Socrates quote, one of my faves, know thyself. Right. And I still am like discovering and uncovering like little parts of me that's like, you think you're there, and then something happens, and then you're provoked into anger, and you're like getting all fired up, and you're like, oh, okay, guess I'm not there, right?
Yeah.
Great. But the process gets easier because you're not taking it personally
Yeah.
anymore, right? It's like, okay, sorry, I responded that way.
Yeah.
Here's how I wish I would have responded. And also, here's what it was reflecting for me. It just becomes this like really harmonic process where, it's like nobody's taking it overly personally, and I don't feel like I need to stop something or prevent something from happening. It's more like revealing the shadow of all the stuff that's been repressed, and allowing me to just move through that, right? So it gets easier in the fact that you get humbled enough to recognize that you're not there wherever there is, back in the embodied true essence. But every single moment that unfolds is moving you that direction. You can't get it wrong. You literally can't get it wrong, right? So that's where it gets easier. That's where it gets easier. And actually, not only easier, becomes joyful.
Yeah.
Because it's just hilarious. It's just like watching ego's tantrums that it gets into is just, at this point, just entertaining for me now. I'm just like, wow. Right.
Yeah.
But when you're in spiritual ego, where you're like, oh, I don't have that, I've bypassed all that, I've transcended all that, then it's devastating. It's constant agony, because you're constantly having to protect this fragile sense of self that needs to be broken down, and every moment is battering at it. That place sucks, right? But it's not truth. So
maybe like going back to Chris's question, can you hear me?
Go ahead. You're good.
Going back to Chris's question a little bit, maybe like part of the problem, I see this in even my own life and other people's life. It's like they have this like putting an expectation on, like, oh yeah, so we're gonna buckle down for 9 months, and then you're like expecting something that you don't even know what is. Almost like I see it with people, like I've done it myself, like, oh, I'm gonna quit drinking for 2 months, and then what happens after the 2 months? And then it's like it's this continuous thing, and putting an expectation on it, almost like to set a deadline, or it's just like kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, exactly. It's insane. It's literally insane. And it's the idea of quitting something is insane.
Yeah.
You're called to something.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if we weren't told that alcohol was bad for us, what would we do? We'd probably commune with alcohol,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't think anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would find if I wasn't medicating, I wouldn't drink so much that I blacked out and did something stupid and like hurt myself and went into the like cycle of regret. But again, even that's feedback, right? So I if I can allow my reality to unfold and then use it as feedback, I'm gonna start winning instead of cycling in Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that whole thing, that because the mind disconnected from heart is completely lost. Heart is the light that is creating. Mind is understanding what is being created. So if mind goes and starts trying to create, it's screwed. It's completely lost. It's in the dark. Right? It's just able to interpret what's coming in. And then we can adjust our embodiment from there, right? But we've been running around with like chickens with our heads cut off, literally disconnected from the body, the heart, right?
Yeah.
So we're not, and this is even like you look collectively as like men and women, and what's happened with the masculine and the feminine is like we've split the brain and we've gone over to the left side. And we've just disconnected, and so we're lost. We've gotten lost collectively. So in the idea of like, okay, if I just have to buckle down for 9 months, is like, you're not really getting it. It's that, that, and you're going to put yourself into dopamine bankruptcy because you don't know how it needs to unfold. Right. And that's the trusting of that heart, that intelligence of the heart, the cardiac sensory neurites, which we have brain cells in our heart, which most people don't know. It's pretty incredible. 40,000 neurons
included.
40,000 neurons in our heart. They're magnetoreceptors, so they can pick up magnetic field signatures. And this is where, if you look at the Institute for Noetic Sciences, Dean Radin's research, they've really looked at the electrophysiology of the heart and found that that is actually where human intuition arises. And the really interesting thing about this whole story, I'll cycle back to where I was going with this before, but what gave rise to the cardiac sensory neurites was 250,000 years ago. There was a telomere fusion that happened in chimpanzee and ape DNA that is the only way. So we've been trying to describe how apes evolved into humans.
Aliens? Maybe.
So what we do know is that there is a event that happened called telomere fusion in a chromosome. So basically a chromosome of ape DNA a chromosome in apes got cut and glued into another one. And so essentially it took 48 chromosomes and made 46.
Okay.
But the only way it could have done that is through this telomere fusion technique, which we don't even have technology to do now. So we don't know who is responsible. But there was a spontaneous mutation that we still like couldn't have happened naturally.
Yeah.
And we don't have the technology to do even to this day. That was what gave rise to the cardiac sensory neurons, among many other things that differentiate humans from apes, that allow us to have intuition. So yeah, it's interesting. So to cycle back around is I'm creating my reality by being. If I start trying to create with my mind, I'm lost. If I start creating expectations, I'm going to be let down. And then the dopamine consequences of that can be drastic, right? And this is another thing that's happened collectively is we've gotten ourselves into dopamine bankruptcy. We set these goals. Here's my goal. Here's how I want it to look. Here's the time I'm going to want to see that in. And okay, let's go. And now I kill myself and I'm distracted. I'm not listening to my reality. I'm just so focused on setting this goal that now I'm not meeting it, or I meet it, and I'm like, oh, I met the goal, but I don't feel any different, right? I don't feel any different.
Yeah.
I still feel kind of empty. Actually,
Yeah. Well,
maybe even more empty.
well, do you think that's a like I feel this personally in my own life? Do you think that's just like a natural thing among athletes, like that are always striving towards a goal, and if they meet the goal, they're happy, and then they're like, then what? And then if you don't meet the goal, you're like, then what?
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. It's like I do resonate with what you're saying a lot, though.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and again, if we are looking for worth in our pursuits, then we will always leave with emptiness because our entire being that's moving us to that is lack. If I do this, I'll be worthy, right? Which means I'm moving from a place that I'm not worthy. I need to do this thing to be worthy in the same being. So there's no change in my innate worth. Even if I did succeed, right? Oh, I did it, right? And I might feel the dopamine hit,
Temporary.
but then I'm back to the same place of being because again, it's I'm trying to change something out there, which is like trying to reorganize pixels on a TV screen. I need to change the light that I'm projecting. That's the only way that I'm going to feel whole,
Yeah.
right? And that's oftentimes, yeah, as like athletes they have it very hard sometimes because it's like, yeah, it's like, wait, I reached the goal and I still don't, but okay, well, let's get a better time. Let's shave 10, let's
Yeah.
shave 10 more seconds off, and then maybe, that's Gollum. That's the inner Gollum looking for his precious that we all are dealing with, learning how to tame, right? Because that precious is not going to give us what we want. It's just that Gollum energy is insane. We
Yeah.
just need to learn how to tame that, and again, recognize who we are. You can still go and do the exact same things, right? Like I can still go out and like, oh, I'm called to like really like hit this hard, right? But I'm in peace, love, and joy with it the whole time, whatever the outcome ends up being, right? And then it doesn't matter what I do, where I go, what I eat, what I drink, what I smoke, what I think, I'm at peace, right? And then the funny thing and the irony of it is that's usually when you start hitting the like record times and the record like just all of a sudden everything starts coming together. You had to just get out of the way,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I've learned this about intuition is sometimes we're intuitively tuning into something that is unfolding, like the alignment we're on. We sometimes get little glimpses of like I remember getting one about Nirvana. It was like this clinic was coming in and I could see it. And then Gollum went, okay, let's make it happen. And I killed myself for 7 years making this thing happen that was already unfolding. And I just like laugh at myself about it now, you know? And I see this with it's like I'm tuning into something that's actually coming.
Yeah.
And it's not for me to make it happen. It's just for me to just keep walking the journey and keep looking at myself and keep dropping the illusions and enjoy the process, right? And then see what happens. Right? It's like epic curiosity. And that's where you're going to be truly full because you're in truth. As soon as you leave your center to try to do something, you've put a mask on and you've left truth. And so you have to borrow dopamine to do it, forced motivation, borrowing, and then I crash because you can't afford the interest rate that the bank is giving you when you borrow dopamine.
Yeah.
So what would you say to like a lot of like especially in the motocross community, there's a lot of young kids that have this like programmed into their brain since they were like 5 years old. So their self-esteem is based on the outcome of their performance. So like how do you even I don't even know how you how do you program that properly, I guess, as a parent?
Yeah, well, I think as a parent, it's more about again your response, right? What is your response to your child not doing good in a race, right? Am I angry? Am I yelling at him? Because I'm only going to consolidate whatever state he's in if I'm doing that, right? Again, with parents, regardless whether it's motocross or anything else, is parents just look at yourself. look at your projections. What are you projecting onto your kid, right? If you need your kid to get to a certain level for you to feel worthy, right?
Yeah.
What is that in you, right? But some of, again, it's some of it is like we're all on our own path, and we don't know what it needs to look like. And you know, I don't try to pretend to know what anything needs to look like for anybody. What I do know is that we're already on track, and again, the awareness that we need is always there. So we're gonna get broken down enough. It's like I fall on my face enough times, eventually I go, okay, I gotta take a step back. I gotta try a different approach here. This is not working. You know, that's like the quitting thing. I remember I was drinking and like, man, many times I quit. It was like, finally, it just like, I got so broken down to the point where I was on my hands and knees. And it was just like help guide. And it was like, okay, now you're ready. Now, finally, you know, like finally you got broken down enough by your own antics, you know.
Well, you're not going to lie to yourself anymore because you've broken yourself down. You literally can't lie
There's
to
no
yourself
option,
anymore.
yeah.
You've exhausted all lies, and now you've got nothing but the truth in front of you.
Exactly.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is the beauty of the intelligence that we are. Right? But we can't use our mind to try to manufacture that intelligence. It's just not, the nature of it is that it's intoxicated, and just in its nature. So we can't let it lead, but we will let it lead because that's the temptation until we get broken down enough to realize we can't let it lead anymore.
So maybe kind of going off the rails here, but popped into my head because you talked about addiction and quitting, right? And do you need to quit necessarily drinking to beat the addiction? So what's kind of the perspective of like, okay, well, you've got your 12-step programmers who say you've got to quit 100% cold turkey, everything that surrounds that, the people, the places. Maybe your heart was calling you to some of these places where your addiction formed, but what's that balance? What's the truth like, or what's your perspective on maybe that 12-step program versus more internal approach to it?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the 12-step program is great. And I mean, there is a point that you have to recognize your own limitations sometimes, right? Like, okay, I know that all I need to do is rewrite this mind, right? But if it's so intoxicated by the content of experience, like you sometimes have to get away. It's like, okay, I have a problem. I am like completely overcome by this alcohol use, for instance, right? I'm looking for myself in alcohol also. So until you can see that in yourself that you're looking for in alcohol, you're going to continually be drawn back. So you can quit all you want, you can avoid all you want, but you're still not there. Like if you're still needing to avoid alcohol because you're going to fall into a deep dark pit,
right,
you're not there. You still haven't looked at what you're running from.
It still has power over you, just like going back to what you were saying earlier.
Exactly. So it's not again, you some people, they're just like, no, I'm not going back there again. Like I can't go even hang out with this friend. I can't go to the bar. I can't. And it's like, great. Okay, good honor in that. Why? What's under that? Why are you, what is still giving that power, right? Because ultimately with alcohol, it's the true self starts being able to crack through, right? It's like I'm inhibited a little bit, and all of a sudden I don't have the mask on, and oh, this feels kind of good, and okay, let's keep going. And it's like, no, but that is you. You don't need the alcohol to do that. You just need to be brave enough to just be you, right? And that is the medicine in that, right? But the path you need to take is, who knows, like for me, I just focused on trying to be as authentic as I could and learn as much about myself as I could. And naturally I just stopped being called to alcohol as much. I still have drinks, like, one or two, maybe three on occasion. And then I have an off switch. It's literally like my body's literally like, nope, and it's not out of like, okay, no, you're going back there again. It's just like, I'm starting to
good.
feel gross.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
starting to feel gross.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get a little hazy in my awareness. We're good.
Not able
Yeah.
to pay
Not-
attention.
Yeah, and it's just automatic for me now. It's
Yeah.
but I also allow myself to enjoy it. Right, and that's again just the place I've found myself
Yep.
is I haven't focused as much because again I tried that whole pony show and it didn't work because I still was avoidant. I was still running from myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and alcohol was actually trying to show me myself. That was why I was called to it.
Yeah, I honestly feel the exact same way. Like I never like people always say like what are you trying to cover up from drinking? Like what are you trying to like bury? It's like more like well I guess it is in a sense, but it's more like I'm too shut off from my own self. So I would have a couple of drinks and then I'd feel more like myself because I have a low self-esteem. And it's kind of like that's kind of showing me what my like the deeper problem is.
Who has a low self-esteem?
I had a low self-esteem.
Who's the I?
What do you mean?
Who's the I?
The I? Me.
Mhm.
What do you mean?
Your nature, your true self.
No.
The fragmented self.
Yes,
The Gollum self believed
I
that it had low self-esteem.
I told myself that for a long time.
Yeah, it believed it.
And I still do, but like I feel like I'm making progress. So.
The Gollum believes that and is trying to sell you on that belief.
Right.
And when anytime you grab that belief, you make it true. You start living in that reality, but it's an artificial reality. It's not real. But it's very tempting, right? Because the Gollum, your inner Gollum, has access to all of your entire browsing history. Everything that's crystallized in your memories. It knows exactly where to hook you. Right?
Yeah.
It's like
it's your perfect enemy.
it's like, oh, look at your
Yeah.
wife's upset. Look what you did. look at you. You're a piece of shit. You're like, yeah, nice try.
So,
Nice try.
like in terms of the self-esteem thing that you're talking about, do you feel like you're born naturally or you've come into life naturally with a high self-esteem and you've broken that down through like the Golem or various things? Or do you think you kind of come in at a neutral state and you need to build yourself up, or like you can go either way type of a thing?
The soul is perfect. The idea of self-esteem doesn't even really.
It's manufactured, kind of.
It's a word we've made up to internalize
Identify
or
it.
identify it. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, is like any feeling like I need to inhibit expression of not even like who I am, but just what's coming up. Right. Again, if I'm just part of this like movie that's playing out, I'm just a character that's playing some role. Who cares? When I really see my true nature, self-esteem there's not even really a computation there. Right. But yeah, we've created that ego construct out of culturally being told again that certain things are good, certain things are bad.
Yep.
Oh, you're tall. Oh, that's adored. And then we watch movies and rom-coms of guys that are chiseled and 6'3" and like, oh, that's the guy, right? And all these different things. And so then when we don't match up with that, Gollum is like, oh, we're a piece of shit, right? And if we don't recognize that is just that programming of the intoxicated content of experience, we have to be able to feel it, because like that feeling of low self-esteem is like, ugh, right? But if we don't allow ourselves to feel it, then we give it power and we give it truth.
Right.
If we go, ugh, yeah, Gollum, yeah, okay, I hear your complaint, I hear your distortion, and I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Right. And oftentimes it is having to go against the grain. Like when we're reprogramming the mind, we're generally having to choose the hard thing over and over and over and over and over again. As soon as we start pacifying ourselves and sucking on the soother and choosing the easy path, we keep forging the same pathway over. It's consolidating it over and over again. So we have to turn and do what we normally wouldn't. Right. And it's the same thing with expression. Is like, oh, something comes up in my awareness, I see it. Now I'm not going to say anything. nah, it's better if I don't say anything.
Yeah.
Right. I keep going that way. I'm gonna have low self-esteem because I'm buying a lie.
Yeah.
Right. That I need to, why would I need to stop my expression if I was all in the highest love and all in the highest good and all in the highest expression? I wouldn't. And if I was eternal and nothing here could truly threaten the truth of who I am, then again, why would I not say anything? Right. And then I start stifling that spiritual, and a lot of times it is actually coming up in your awareness because it's important.
Yeah.
There's and I oftentimes tell people, like, what if you're the only one getting that awareness? Right? And it's meant to come through because it's going to help that other person. But we're judging it. You see Gollum mind come in, start judging. Oh, no, better not say that. Oh, you're going to be an asshole if you say that, right? And then we shut off our connection to spirit. We twist ourselves in the quantum field, and now we're in cell danger response.
Yep. So just quick segue, going back to addiction a little bit. What do you think about like cigarette packages having this chemical is addictive? Like it's almost gaslighting you and to tell you you're going to be addicted to it, saying this is going to cause cancer. Is that like, you think that's something that's kind of like subliminally putting that into your being basically?
Yes. But you're the one putting it into your being.
No, I'm not trying to say cigarettes are good for you, but
no. What I'm saying is you're the one deciding.
Yes, of
you're
course.
the one deciding what that means to you, right? So yes, it's the insane mind's solution to trying to get people to quit, but all it does is push people into guilt and shame, which actually just
Makes it
guarantees
harder.
the cycle.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, we're the meaning maker. Like we are the meaning maker.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, if I tell myself that smoking tobacco and drinking alcohol is bad for me, and yet I keep being called to it, I'm killing myself. I keep breaking myself down, right? But if it's just again another part of the content of experience of like, okay, I'm called to this tobacco. If I didn't have any memory attached to what that meant, it would be meaningless. It would just be another thing I was engaging with in this experience, right? So I'm the meaning maker. I get to give it truth or not. I get to decide whether it's bad or not.
Now,
right?
it's, like, it's okay to give it the meaning that it is bad, though. Yeah?
Sure, if you want.
Like, well, I'm
Yeah,
just,
but like you should, it's kind of like a hard thing to navigate because you should know what things are not benefiting you and what things are benefiting you, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, again, it's why are you
It's your
being called to it?
intuition,
Why
yeah.
are you being called to
Yeah.
it, right? In anything that you feel dependent on outside of yourself, why are you being called to it, right? Like if I feel like I can't get through a day without something, why?
yeah.
Why? And what is it showing me? But you won't be able to quit. And this is the thing. You're not going to be able to quit. You have to look at what it's showing you. What are you allowing yourself to be by interfacing with that? Right. And that again is the reality is that it's not, if you're living in the lie and you're living in the illusion, you're killing yourself. It doesn't matter whether you're smoking or drinking or, I see it in the clinic all the time, orthorexia, people that are like completely obsessed with a perfect diet. It's like, I don't eat anything unclean. I'm perfect in my exercise, my diet, and it's perfect. And I'm the sickest I've ever been. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Driving yourself nuts.
Right. Again, because it's all the judgment.
Yeah.
What's good and what's bad. And you're missing the point. You're killing yourself because you're not aligned with your true essence.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not aligned in truth, you're dying. And again, I mean it on the soul level, right? Not obviously we're all dying. The body is dying. It's decaying. Anyway, but there's a point in which we, on the soul level, there isn't suffering, and that's the difference, right? I'm aging, but I'm not suffering, right? But you have these people that are suffering deeply because, again, they're giving all their power to everything outside of themselves as being the cause for why they're suffering, right? And that's not true. And again, whether it's not good or bad, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself it's true, but you're lying to yourself.
Right. You're plugging yourself into an artificial reality.
Yeah.
And we've created artificial realities all over the place,
Yeah.
above and beyond metaverse or whatever. I don't know what the new thing is anymore.
Yeah,
But
every time you look on fucking Instagram or whatever,
was-
it's an artificial.
I was
Everything's
just
like,
gonna say, like, cell phones and technology have just created a whole new level of artificial reality
Mhm.
that's even worse than getting
Yeah,
wrapped
you
up
can
in
have like a
addiction or
separate
something.
identity, right?
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
different person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
I
yes.
think some people are very open and I think very authentic, and
Yeah.
then but
Mhm,
then
for
yeah,
sure.
of course, there's going to be a temptation to not be that, and then we get drug into other people's creations,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like I always say, like if you know what the next year of your life is looking like, you're living in someone else's creation.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I
yeah.
promise
For
you.
sure.
If you're actually allowing your life to unfold in the way that it was always meant to,
Yeah.
you're not going to know even what's happening in 3 months. You
Right.
know, like the last 2.5 years of my life has been like, I could have never told you that I would be doing the things I'm doing and that life would be unfolding in the way I've never in a million years could I have ever predicted it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so that's the temptation is, oh, look at them. They have so much of what, if I just had that,
They're lying to themselves
then-
anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly. And no, because if you don't have it now, you're not going to have it. You can have the world.
Yeah.
You could have $1 trillion, but
Yeah.
if you don't have that, if you aren't you now, you won't be you then.
Hmm.
You're actually going to be further from you then.
Yes.
Because you've ran further from your center to reach a goal that you think is going to bring you
I
the
guess
truth of
it's
who you already are.
why they say money doesn't bring you happiness, right? Because it doesn't bring you to who you are.
It's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's a meaningless symbol. It gets me stuff in the world of matter.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can buy all this stuff, this form. Ew, yeah, great. Like I got all this.
Mm.
And there is a place where the reality we live in now is like that we need a certain amount to have comfort. But again, if you're at peace in your heart, you're gonna have exactly what you need. It's already gonna be
Yeah.
there, and that's
Yeah.
the thing that's hard for people to get at first.
Yeah.
Is you're manufacturing something. If I'm chasing money, I'm manufacturing something, and I'm going beyond what I need. And it's not bad. It's just not going to bring you what you think it's gonna bring you,
Yeah.
right? Because you already have everything you need right here, right now. Give us this day our daily bread. You're given everything that you need. If you think you need more, you're not seeing what you have, and you're not listening to what's showing up in your reality, right? And oftentimes we're not granted the pursuit of money doesn't give us what we want. We don't even get the money that we want either, because again, it's like, no, that's not. Nuh-uh. If you keep going that way, you're not gonna find yourself. Like it's like literally, it's like the soul doesn't allow it. You
Yeah.
know?
It's like setting that goal of, oh, I want to be a millionaire, and then you get there, and did it actually satisfy what you were trying to achieve?
Mhm.
Oh, I just needed another couple million
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's
And then you're
Gollum.
holding on to your $1 million like it's gonna disappear tomorrow. Like you were talking
Mhm.
about that guy who just held on to it, the scarcity thing,
Mhm.
right? Like
And then you have to connive and manipulate to
Yeah.
get more because you're embodying scarcity.
yeah.
So the
Yeah.
truth that you're embodying is not bringing you money. So you need to connive and manipulate to get it.
Damn,
Right.
Sounds easy to fix.
And
It all sounds so cliche. Like,
it's wild, but Gollum's a crackhead.
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Gollum's he's sucking on the crack pipe constantly. So it's never, you're always gonna be looking for more as long
Yeah.
as you let Gollum lead.
Yeah, yeah.
And let me give you a depiction of what it looks like to let Gollum lead or ego lead. You're driving in a vehicle. You decide to let ego drive, but ego can only look in the rear view mirror. That is allowing ego to take. That is how blind you are when you let ego take the lead. It only can look in the past. It can only look at what's gone by.
Yeah.
So you're done for, right? You're in the ditch. You're probably in a head-on
Yeah.
collision. You're
Yeah.
not going to make it very far before you're crashing and burning, right?
Yeah.
Heart can open and see every direction and angle, and it will move us where we need to go, but we need them two in line, and just recognizing the limitations of the ego self is that it's intoxicated by everything that has been. It's all dead. The only moment that truly exists is now. So if I'm not present in the now, I'm dead, right? I'm literally the walking dead. That's ego. It's Gollum. And why I love like J.R.R. Tolkien's representation of like Gollum is like he's a mess, right? He looks like he's half dead. That's it. That's the reality, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting to process. Like I'm thinking of my own life and how I, act and influence myself now. Thinking about it.
It's good to be aware, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and again, like not take it too seriously.
Yeah.
It's you just like laugh it off, and you'll start becoming more aware, and that's all it's about. Awareness is what shifts everything, and this is like the quantum physics experiments, right? You as soon as you observe something through awareness, it changes. That's how magical awareness is.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with ceremonies and stuff that we do. The only thing that changes in people is their awareness. The way the light of awareness shines. Oh, wow. And then their life transforms.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. So you're going to be more aware of things, and then your life's going to change. And then this uncomfortable stuff's going to come up, and it's going to challenge you to keep choosing the hard way, because that's how you're going to forge a new path towards awakened heart. And then that's where the liberation exists, because we're not living in the lie anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, Todd, welcome to the show.
Yes, it's been interesting walking in on this.
Yeah, it's probably a lot to
Right
jump in the middle of.
Yeah, it took a minute to figure out what's going on. That's good. Actually, I was gonna ask, like, in your pursuit of like a dream and like or a goal, or I guess a dream, and then the goals laid out to get there. Like I guess if you're being open and aware, opportunities to make those goals and dreams happen. But like, how hard do you push for a dream or a goal if it's like authentic to you?
So I don't even call them dreams or goals. I call them calls.
Okay, yeah.
It's like there's a call on my heart. So like right now, my wife and I have had like a really strong call to sort of publish what we've learned about the spiritual, the energetic, our nature, and almost like in a way like a bit of an instruction manual to understand yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what we're in the process of recording right now, and that's the call.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a goal with it as much as like it does feel important to get it out for people to be able to like, who is ready and they're called to like really learn about who they are and liberate themselves, is like, we want to get that program out. But yeah, it's not as much, it's more walking from this place of like following the call without any attachment to outcome at all. Like I get, of course there's expectations. That, ooh, maybe we can make a bunch of money, and then, but that's the Gollum brain. So it's like, okay, yeah, maybe, and that'd be cool. Like, but really all that's important is that we get something out that's like really great, that helps people, like anybody can afford it. And like, if they can't, it's a scholarship that we have available for people to be able to like get into it and plug into the community and the process, and like, because everybody's different, and how our reality unfolds is infinitely subjective, right? It's so you just like get to watch people on these incredible journeys, and everybody's different. And so it's like being there to help, maybe just be a light, right? Just illuminate, like, well, here's what's coming up in my awareness as you're sharing this. Yeah. Right. And that's the call right now. And again, the how, I don't even know. I just know that it just is coming together, and more people are really open to hear like this type of stuff. Right. So, in terms of like, I used to have dreams, and goals when I was still chasing the crack pipe, so to speak.
Yeah. So,
but it gave rise to, like, we have an awesome clinic, an amazing team. We've helped a lot of people. And so it's been all great. But again, I take a step back and see that that was already unfolding anyway. It wasn't anything that I had to make happen.
Yeah.
So I've really just gotten out of the way of making things happen. I've broken that
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like
Yeah, that's-
reframing it that way. Yeah, like because when you say like you identify something as a dream or say a goal, either you scored or you missed.
Mhm.
A calling, I feel like, can change and it can shift over time, and everything's gonna happen the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think that everybody has a call already? Like, what do you say to a person who, I don't know what my calling is. I don't know what my, you know, thing is.
And you're talking in terms of like the bigger calling, the bigger purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Or anything at all. Let's say someone talking about your calling might be motocross racing or opening the clinic. Let's say I'm sitting here going, okay, I don't know. What's my call? I don't feel like I have a call.
Your call could be to go walk to the corner and get a coffee tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Your call
So-
is to pet this dog that's walking by.
Yeah, so it doesn't need to be some grand.
No,
thing.
it isn't. It's just presence.
Yeah.
It's just being present. And like my call today was like, come here, do the podcast.
Yeah.
Right. Feeling called probably shortly to close things up, and I'm gonna head back to the campsite, and I'm gonna hang out with my dog and my wife, and maybe have some smoked meat. I don't know, right? but again, it's getting back to that just like being human piece too, of just like again enjoying the experience of all of it, because again we can get really caught up in that higher calling. People are like seeking this higher purpose, and again it's grandiose. It's the same Gollum energy in a different way. Right. And so if you want to be in service, like I see people that are like, I want to serve humanity. Right. And I want to do this big thing, and I want to be Mother Teresa, and I want to feed the homeless. And it's like, okay, well, start with illuminating with what's showing up in your reality, because there's already a service that's unfolding constantly.
Yeah.
But it's not what you think it is, because your ego wants to be Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Right. And you're now missing every single little tiny opportunity for you to actually be in service.
Yeah,
That's showing
your
up in every
awareness
moment.
is just gone out the window when you fixated.
Exactly.
something like
Right, yeah,
That's
yeah,
a good-
exactly.
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
And you've pulled yourself from presence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and which pulls you out of your truth, because your truth is a light of awareness that exists in the now and nowhere else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how does I think a lot of people struggle with this a little bit. Like, how does like religion and spirituality all tie in with all this stuff? Like, it seems confusing.
Can we pause it on that note so I can take a piss?
Yes, let's pause it. Pause it.
I think this is a great topic.
You ready?
Are we back?
No, not yet.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Just to kind of pick up where we left off. Yeah, I guess like lately I've been. I mean, I'm sure Chris is shocked by this because I've always been like anti-religion and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I guess I like you said, I'm feeling like called to it. So I guess how does like religion and spirituality all like tie together with this like heart and brain and all this?
To drastically oversimplify, my perspective is that spirituality it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual. It's all sacred. Who we are, our entire process. Religion is Gollum's version of spirituality. So what I mean by that is that religion has attempted to structure and standardize something that is not able to be standardized or structured. So the dogmatic practices and rituals and things are they're stifling. They don't allow, because things like even the way Chris, by the way, I'm a big Christ guy. Christ teachings, man. He's picked me up and saved me from myself so many times. Krishna, amazing, and so I don't take away from, but the way that we've tried to take the teachings, and like if you look at some of Jesus's teachings through the lens of fear, you see it completely different. The way that you see it is this like condemning, judgmental type of a God, of a creator. If you look at it through the lens of love, your brain literally computes it differently, and we understand this now. Like logs of consciousness is I'm not computing reality clearly when I'm in fear. And we kind of know that, and like when I'm in anger, I'm intoxicated in anger. Sometimes it can feel like I'm really clear and I see it so clearly, but I'm intoxicated, like blinded, right? So what I see a lot in like some of the teachings is like, especially with Catholicism, and aspects of Christianity, is like, if I'm not allowed to make a mistake, how can I step forward into my spirituality? Right?
And that's probably what turns a lot of people away from it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lie. It's a lie. So of course, right? Now again, I don't ever like to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think there is truth technically in everything, because it all arises from the same source code. So there is truth in it. It's just being able to discern that through all of the, sometimes a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
Right. And so anything that inflicts the idea that I am bad, or that I could do something bad that will then put me into a place of eternal damnation, it's just not real.
That's insane.
Yeah,
you think about it, that's insane.
It's just not real. If we're supposed to be humbled children of God, how can I be humbled if I'm not allowed to make a mistake? Right. And that so I think it always depends. It's like there are pastors out there that I think are excellent. I think they really see it, and I think they really get it, and they embody it, and they teach it well. And then there's a lot of people that don't. Right. And how many times have pastors gotten caught with their pants down, quite literally, right? And you're like, dude, okay, you're not really living the story here, right? And yet you're the one telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing. You've condemned yourself. And again, it's not bad. It's just where you're at, and you're not your being is condemning and judging, right? And so I think again, it's just a lot of people have allowed themselves to get trapped in that, or again, the very idea of like, okay, I'm being obedient to God if I just show up to church on Sunday. Like, okay, and are you looking at the rest of your reality? Like, oh no, I show up to church on Sunday. I'm a Christian. I'm a devout Christian. I'm protected by Christ, and I'm not listening to my reality. So then it's like religion can really stifle your growth, in my opinion. But there's some fundamental truths and things, and they speak to God and they speak to Creator, and so it's good. But it's just anytime you get stuck in a dogmatic practice, you're trying to standardize something that can't be standardized, right? And anytime you're making yourself feel bad about something, or then again, it's again not good or bad. It's just it's a lie, right? And you see it with traditional indigenous practices with plant medicine even. It's like here's how the plant medicine process works. We sit, you stay on your mat, you don't talk to anybody, you don't allow yourself to move as you're called. And it's like this, but we're really spiritual, and it's like, really? Because I see a lot of dogmatic practice here. You're still trying to standardize something that can't be standardized, right? And so we're all guilty of it. Every institution is guilty of it. So it's moving beyond all of that, and into, again, using some of the teachings as guidance. But how do we move beyond that? And as Chris said earlier, is like, how do we integrate that into what's actually right in front of us? Because that is sacred. Everything about it is all sacred. My journey, the being drunk and blacking out and getting in fights, sacred, right? Right? Finding myself again, sacred, right? And like, how could we look at anything as if it's not? If we truly see all of it as it is. And so I think, again, you just pick up, and a lot of people get turned off from religion because of what they feel in the container that they're in, right? And that's sort of like when we do ceremonies, people feel very, very open to be themselves and to like express what's on their heart and what they're struggling with. And in that, they find this deep sense of peace. Almost every single person in ceremony it's epic to watch, is this deep sense of peace. And it's all because we just allow it all and look at it all as important. Like, tell me what's showing up in your awareness right now, because I bet you it's important. And I don't care how weird you think it is. There's probably something important in it for you. There's a guide, it's guiding, right? And it may be showing you the guideposts where you don't want to go, right? Or it may be showing you the guide. Either way, it's a guidepost, right? So I think, for me, walking into a church, it's funny because I had a lot of resistance to God. I had a lot of resistance to Christ. I had a lot of resistance to all that. Part of that was my own shit. Part of that was it was reflecting my own shit. And also part of it was I felt a lot of judgment. I felt a lot of judgment in there, and it just made me want to shut down. It's again, it's just trying to get all of the ideas of, like, if you're called to go to a church, go, like, because you don't know why. And that's the thing. When there's a call on your heart, you don't know why. It doesn't matter. Just follow it, right? And that's part of what Jesus talks about being obedient. It's not about being obedient so that you get to go to heaven, right? So that I'm not condemned to hell. It's just listen to the call that's on your heart so that you can move towards liberation. And it's the same thing of, like, don't judge another, or don't do unto another, or don't cause harm to another. It's not about that being like you're bad if you cause harm. It's just that you're putting yourself in a prison. Whatever you do to somebody else, you've done to you're already doing to yourself. So that's the guidance. It's not about, and like even like the commandments, of like loving thy neighbor and as thy own, and a lot of these, like, don't steal, it's not because, like, oh, if I steal, I'm now going to hell. It's like, no, the fact that you need to steal means you're not in love. You're not there. It doesn't mean that you're condemned to hell. It means you're not quite there. And these are the people that need the most love. But what ends up happening is those are the people that are cast out typically. Like, oh, you're garbage.
Lock you in a cell or whatever. Yeah.
So,
right.
I want to ask you a couple questions about the religion thing, since you brought it up and said you're kind of curious or something about it. What have you gone to church yet?
I'm not even talking about religion in like the go to church sense. I'm just feeling like, I don't know. It just seems too crazy how things happen in your life, and it's like there's no way all these things could be a coincidence. And I don't know. I'm just like, I'm not even feeling called to like religion, like I guess feeling called to like faith or God or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
That is the only place my faith rests. That's the only place my faith rests, is that who created me, who brought me here, who will take me away from here, who organized this epic creation. Like, I'm awestruck when I when I look at it. You know, when I really look at, like, it. We live in a universe of miracles. Big Bang Theory, can't explain it. Miracle. What came out of that? Perfect organization of galaxies, stars, to the point where Earth and the sun, perfect organization. Even the moon and the nature of that was a miracle. And we didn't have that, we wouldn't have tides. We wouldn't have a planet with life, right? And then you go further to the appearance of blue-green algae spontaneously. Where'd they come from? Well, either it's God or it's a miracle, okay? And then we have those invade an animal cell and they become symbiotic. It allows us to produce mammals. Miracle.
Yeah.
Right? And then the sun changes its spectrum to the point where it's selected for animals that could internalize melanin, which allowed us to be able to drive a higher quantum energy production state to eventually build a human brain. Miracle.
Yeah.
We have the spontaneous chromosomal
Yeah, I
abnormality
was just gonna
change
say,
of
yeah.
apes to humans 250,000 years ago.
Aliens.
As far as we can say it. Miracle.
Aliens are God.
Right? And so you look at it's like, okay, so either we live in a intelligent creation of God, or we live in a complete fluke of a universe that's full of miracles. What's the difference, really?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Right?
You,
I call it God because I have such deep reverence for it. I think most people are afraid to say it.
Right.
you're kind of believing in one thing or another. You're not certain of
It
anything.
doesn't have to be a guy in the clouds,
so,
right?
yeah.
It's to me, and as Jared said, like, when you look close enough at your reality, you start seeing like everything is unfolding so perfectly to the point that I could never organize it in the way that it's unfolded. And you're just like, how? Like, actually, how? And, when you're in ceremonies and you're really relaxed into it and you watch the movement, just the subtleties and how perfect they all are. This person says something and it triggers something in this person that all of a sudden drives them into a memory of something they haven't processed, that leads to an expression that triggers this person over here to all of a sudden, whoa, get an insight, connect the dot that they haven't. And you're just watching this literal, like, unseen force move through everybody, and you're just like, wow. Is anybody else seeing this right now? And then you can't deny it anymore. It's
No.
just the scales are removed from your eyes, and you're just like, wow.
What are your thoughts on what's weird? Like an hour ago, I had like severe deja vu, and after our last ceremony, I dreamt of that exact conversation. What does that mean? Am I just crazy, maybe?
Oh man, I don't even know. I'd love to sit here and tell you exactly
No,
what
I'm not.
deja vu is, but I mean, but again, there is something that's like, that is an intelligence that is beyond just the mind, right? There's something there, and yeah, again, it just speaks to how, like, time is an illusion. Like, we need time to understand it, because if we didn't have time, it would all be happening all at once, and it would be like, what would be the point?
Yeah, that'd
right?
be bizarre.
Yeah, so it's like time. Yeah, when you think about it, it's like, it's everything that's ever happened or will happen has already happened, in the idea that at a certain dimension there is no time, but time takes and pulls everything that has been, will be, is right now, and weaves it
Yeah.
right into this epic story, into eternity, by the way. So deja vu is like, well, yeah, I tuned into that moment already, and then it unfolded.
Is that like a quantum field thing? Something maybe?
It's something quantum.
It's weird.
Typically when you're transcending time, it's something in the quantum field. But that's what we can't understand, and like that Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Right? We don't understand what's happening in this quantum field, yet we're coupled to it. It's actually where our essence arrives from on this plane. And so again, like, I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, because I don't know what's happening in that field, but I know that's where we're truly from. That's our real home, and we're just a visitor to this plane, but also that it's teaching us something. We're going through some growth process of some sort. That is very clear. So
Wild. What are your thoughts on prayer? Like, do you think it's just manifesting, or changing your mindset, or you think there's something more to it?
So I'm always careful with prayer. In the sense that, well, now where I'm at, the only thing I'm ever called to pray to is thanks. Thank you. That's it. That's all I got anymore. The reason I say be careful with prayer is that when you find yourself asking for something, what are you telling yourself? You don't have it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're actually embodying a state of emptiness, or again, just going into the illusion again, right? So, but I have caught myself, like, we got caught in a storm, when we were coming back from a ceremony down in southern Alberta, and there was that hail, that bit like crazy hailstorm. We were driving in the motorhome, and it got so bad that I couldn't see the road. I couldn't see where I was stopped on the road, and I couldn't tell where I was. And it was like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, are we gonna get rear-ended, right? It's that time I caught myself praying, like, okay, God, just give me an opening here. And it was funny because it did slow down just for like 5 seconds, enough for me to figure out, oh, okay, there I am. I got off to the shoulder. But yeah, I mean, generally, like, again, if I'm praying for something, I'm just reinforcing the fact that I don't have everything that I already need. So my prayer is usually thanks, or what am I not seeing? What is it that is here right now that I'm not seeing? Help me see, right? And there is something to that as well, because we do have free will. And this is like another conversation of why God allows what God allows. If God was loving, why would he let that happen? Blah, right? Yes. And it's like, well, because again, if I love somebody unconditionally, I don't force anything upon them. Yeah. Right. And that's the same. So I have to allow them to make the mistakes and do these things and bond themselves. And the system's perfect, because, like, again, whatever I do to another, I'm doing to myself. I'm the one suffering. Right. So with the idea of prayers, like, what am I not seeing? Thank you. Give me guidance. Give me like there's something I'm like, I can't, like, help me see, help me move.
So it's not like can you fix this, or like you never, like, it's nothing like that, right?
Right, because the minute that you get into that, you're getting distracted again, right? That you're assuming something needs to be fixed in this moment, right? The only thing that needs to be fixed is your own ignorance, and so you can ask for that, right? And so I find myself praying in those situations, more, it's, again, gratitude, guidance, help me see. I know I'm not seeing something clearly here, because I'm stuck in this anger, right? Which I know, and I can't get out of the anger until I get the awareness that I need, right? But then also it always, if we're all woven into this program, the only time I'm going to get anything is if I've brought Christ back in as my savior. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You'll eventually see that Christ's teachings are the very narrow alignment that will allow you to see yourself clearly and see the insanity for what it is. But it's not about going, okay, I'll bring Christ into. No, the awareness is always coming to you. It's not stopping, right? So it's like, how can I see what I'm not seeing, right? I'll sometimes say, like, quantum prayer is really helpful in terms of feel what you want to feel more of, and then drop the idea of what it needs to look like, right? So I work like every morning. I have a practice of getting just to that place of peace in my heart, like just right around here, relaxed, peace centered, feeling just unwavered by anything. And then I'm creating from that state of being. And if all I care about is that, I don't attach any mental content to it. I don't care. I don't care what comes in that brings me more of that. I don't. I just want more of this, right? And so that's another helpful practice is like not caring what, not like praying for something specific, but help me align with more peace. Help me align in more joy. Help me align in more love. And then watch what shows up in your reality, because it will be there. And that is the wild thing. It will be there. It will be there. We miss it sometimes because we get too caught up in the content of what it needs to look like.
Right.
And then we're not swept away by the surprise and the joy of it. Of like, wow, really? That was how it came to, wow.
Yeah.
Right. And so we don't let, it's so much more divine that way of just like, just being swept away by the wow of it when it comes, and how it hits sometimes is so funny. But it's almost always breaking ego down, because the only thing that's in the way of that in the first place is the illusion of the fragmented self that's been created from the memories of this experience. And then placing the assumption that because I have all these memories, I know it all. Oh, this is it. This is all there is. All right. And that's the place that gets us stuck. So it's, how do I let go of that? Help me let go of the illusion. Help me let go of what I'm not. I don't even need to find who I am. I just need to let go of who I'm not. And then who I am's right there already. Right. So it's like we've built these walls, and that's like Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love. It's to seek and find all the barriers that you've built against it. Because that you're already love.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just get rid of the barriers.
Yeah.
Right? So
I just sit here and I'm like,
Sounds like-
I just start thinking about
Yeah.
everything.
deep contemplation.
Yes, yeah.
I might have to go back and listen to this one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think
Well, I'm
I want to
listening.
too.
I'm
yeah.
listening, but I'm forgetting a few things.
Yeah.
as it
No, it'd be
goes,
good to
too.
just like go back over it.
Don't fully make sense. There are things that aren't showing up in your awareness as hard as other things are. What's showing up the most, what's hitting the awareness the strongest, is exactly what you need right now. But that's going to change in even a week. That will change. What you need to hear will be different. You'll go back and you'll listen to this and you'll pick up at things that you're like, oh, I didn't even pick up on that the first time. No, because your mind wasn't at the place where it was able to take that in. Right. And I see this a lot in especially in ceremonies where like a lot of deep stuff can be flowing, and I see people just completely, it's like they glitch out. It's like you're talking and they're like, and then it's like, oh, and then they're back again.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, they
Yeah.
didn't need to hear that part.
Yeah.
That part was just going to overwhelm them. So
Yeah.
they just straight up tuned it out, and then they're back again. And it's
Yeah.
like that.
Huh.
It's arriving exactly as it needs to, and we just need to allow it. And it's not about memorizing it all and remember. It's just about what's relevant for me right now. And that's why I like the word like called to. It's like, what am I called to right now?
Yeah.
What's relevant for me right now? What's resonating for me right now? And what's resonating for me right now may not resonate in a week, and that's okay. Right? That's okay. I'm going to get what I need out of that download, and then I'm going to move on. It's sometimes like relationships, right? We sometimes get this like amazingly resonant like connection with somebody, and it's like, we're going to be friends forever. And then 6 months later, it's like, we're not really vibing anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Right?
So let's say you got this calling that's in front of you, right? And there's all this static and fuzz kind of going on, or barricades. Do you pay attention to that static and fuzz at all? While, like, let's say you're still tuned in on the calling. Are you paying attention to the static and fuzz? Or are you trying to, like you said, glitch and tune that out because it's not serving?
No, because I don't know why I'm being called somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm working, it's being present with all of it, not paying attention to all of it, right? Remember, I don't want to give my attention to everything, right? But I'm aware of what's happening,
Yeah.
right? So like the static, what used to be static for me is now relevant content that just was, I needed to get more present to be able to
Right.
like actually like, okay, right? And so I'm paying attention to it all, what I'm feeling, what I'm picking up. And then like sometimes I have to process it after. Yeah, it's not like I'm like getting all of the like insights in the moment, but it's later I'll be like sharing, and like sometimes like my wife and I will like, we do a Wednesday community call where we talk about this stuff. And you know, we'll go through the call, and then her and I'll chat after, and it's like, yeah, I know I was feeling this, and it was, and then all of a sudden more clarity starts building, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, interesting,
Yeah.
right? And it's kind of like you're downloading in the moment, and then you're contemplating. It's like an upload that's happening after that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I allow it all because I don't know. Like again, like I say, like you might have like a longer term calling, but then there's like moments of presence that keep unfolding, and like all of a sudden I'm like, again, I can get really distracted by my pursuit, right? Like, oh, I
Yeah.
got to go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
and I'm just straight to the aisle, grab what I need, run away, and then I'm missing a connection that's actually like supposed to happen.
Yeah.
That's why I
there.
don't go with a list.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree.
and just like slowing down, like
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing for me, is like slowing down everywhere I go, because like I don't know what is gonna come in. I don't
Yeah.
know what meaningful connection is gonna happen. I don't know what meaningful thing is gonna come out of us breaking down on the side of the road, but I know that it's doing something. There's some meaning in it, and I don't need to find the meaning. It's just gonna be there. But if I can't be present with what's happening, that distractibility is the thing that keeps us stuck in the old patterns, because we're not picking up the wisdom that's constantly coming to us. And so it's being present with all of it,
Yeah.
being present with all of it, and you'll see what unfolds from that. It's incredible. hmm
Where would be like a good place for someone to start? Maybe someone that's not like fully open to something like a ceremony. Like, what would you? I guess it's different for everyone, but what would you suggest as a good starting place to start to open yourself up to this stuff?
Joe Dispenza's works good.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Dispenza's works really good, and he's good at really like simplifying something that's hard to simplify. Eckhart Tolle, in reading like The Power of Now, incredible. That's, you know, sitting with those types of contemplations. For me, you know, now I sit outside in the morning, no phone, no contact with anybody. I just sit outside with myself and get present with my moment. And as long as that takes me, sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes I wake up out of bed and I'm in that state. I'm like, yeah. Sometimes it's half an hour. Sometimes I still don't even get there, and I just, okay, move into my day, and I guess this is what we're being present with. Sometimes being present is being present with agitation.
I was gonna say, what
Yeah.
happens? You just sit out there all day and miss work, or
Yeah. But yeah, you know, again, it's just practicing allowing everything. Just feel everything that happens. Let's start relabeling everything that unfolds as perfect, and just being aware of what's coming up in your thoughts. So mindfulness practices are really good as well. Jack Kornfield and his work's really great. Insight Timer is an awesome app for some of that. Get somebody to guide you in the mindfulness practice if you're really like early on, and just work with it, and then listen to the calls that come up on the awareness, because that's the most important thing, is what are you being called to. You can try these different things, but what keeps showing up? Or like somebody's talking about something and it's like, ooh, that's really interesting me. Follow it, right? But the most important thing is just being more and more aware, intentionally putting the intention of being more self-aware, more aware of what's showing up in the thoughts. What emotion am I in right now? What energy am I in right now? Where am I holding tension in my body? Where am I getting ahead of myself, right? Where am I judging, right? Where am I attacking? And just being super self-aware, not trying to change any of it, just awareness. Awareness changes it all. As soon as I catch myself not
Yeah.
being present, I'm present.
Mhm.
I don't need to move back into presence. It's just, oh, I left presence.
Do you think it's I don't know, sometimes I find myself being like over self-aware where it's like I'm over
Overanalyzing everything.
yeah,
Well, analysis is over analysis is different than awareness.
yes, yeah.
Awareness is the neutral witness
Yeah.
watching it all with not controlling or analyzing
Mhm.
any of it.
Right.
Right? Analysis paralysis is Gollum,
Yes.
because that's Gollum trying to find a way out, trying to figure out what does it mean and how do I get it to go away,
Mhm.
right? Or what does it mean? Oh God, how do I make sure that I do this right, or I don't get it wrong, or I don't repeat the past, or there's some level of so analysis is different. Analysis is picking apart something, right? Instead of just allowing the awareness to be there. And that's why I always say, like, your life is going to be more radically changed when you just get out of the way. Stop trying to figure it out. But there is going to be an awareness that will be there. It's not like by me getting out of the way, it all stops and now I can't figure anything out. No, as you get out of the way, there's a higher, way more intelligent awareness that starts coming through. And it's there. We just got to get our Gollum intelligence. I almost don't even call it intelligence, but it is. But getting the Gollum intelligence out of the way so that can come through.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I think, like when I look at Jesus's teachings of dying to the self, is not like killing yourself, not even killing your ego. It's just recognizing that limited self and getting it out of the way, not letting it drive anymore. And you see the crucifixion, even that whole process and the metaphor that represents is like to die to the self is to crucify the illusion that you've hardwired into your brain. Crucify the neural pathways that have led you into the illusion or consolidated the line in the illusion. Kill those pathways, crucify those pathways, and resurrect them in light. Resurrect them in a new awareness, right? And then let your reality change from there. And then crucify the next layer of illusion that comes. Die to that too. Resurrect it in light. Stop feeding the illusion. Stop investing in the illusion. And as long as you're investing in the illusion, the door-to-door salesman keeps showing up, keeps knocking, and you keep buying, right? There it is. As soon as you stop buying, there's going to be a tantrum. Gollum's going to throw a tantrum. Let the tantrum happen. Don't give into it. Don't do anything about it. Just feel it. And when you do that, that's the crucifixion of ego. Ego is being sequestered out of the body. You didn't give into the tantrum, right? And now you've been able to resurrect in a new way, and you're going to be more aware when that pattern comes in, and it's going to have less of an influence over you because you've allowed yourself to feel it. It can't grab, it can't hook in anymore. And we just don't give it the time of day, again, we're still aware that it's in the field. We still be aware, but we don't give it truth. There's a very big difference there, right? Mm-hmm. So being aware is not paying attention. Paying attention is doing something about it, right? So if I have a call to an awareness, I pay that attention when I feel like it is in the highest form of love or it's coming from a place of service to somebody, right? What I pick up on is when there is a lie that shows up in my field. Like, again, oh, Corey, if you do this, you're going to make a bunch of money. Like, okay, I know that path. No, not giving that any truth. I'm not going to move into that call because I know where that call leads, right? Or if I feel super anxious about something, I don't go do something about it, right? So like if I'm like, ooh, there's anxiety wave. Okay, I need to go drink a beer. I need to go take I need to go take a Xanax, right? Now I'm giving that basically is I'm identifying as that. Right. So it's de-identify with that crap and just be the witness, and then let yourself move through the process that unfolds, and all the awareness you need is going to be there along the way. So you don't have to look for it. It's just there. Stop distracting is the main thing.
Yeah.
So that's with my ADD.
Who's ADD?
Everything feels like it.
I think
I don't know. The whatever drives me to feel called to and what distracts me feels like instant, and I don't know. It's like what distracts me. It pulls me away from everything I'm doing. Sometimes they're calls like trying to pull me towards them
Mm-hmm.
in little tasks that you need to get done in a day. Like dishes need to get done.
Mhm.
Laundry needs to get folded. And
But
put
you're
away.
called to go work on the
But I
van.
am called to go do any of my passions.
So who is defining that dishes need to be done?
Well, I guess my girlfriend.
Calls her out.
Yeah.
I always ask this because do the dishes need to be done? Could they sit there for another day?
Yeah,
Probably.
probably.
And this is part of like us dropping the control. Very important process that I went through as well is like, who cares if the dog's fed? Who cares if the dishes are done? Who cares if everything's tidy? Who cares? Right? Who's the one that cares? Right? The one that wants to control and organize reality. Well, it makes me feel good. It makes who feel good? Right? And so it's not to say that you let your place turn into a pig's like for us is like we're not going to let it get out of hand, right? But we let it get a little bit scattered and a little bit, and then there's going to be a call
There
of
is
like,
the
okay,
call
now
to
it's
do this,
actually
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
the time
Yeah.
to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you will feel a spontaneous motivation. It's
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
need to be forced, and so. But it's hard to relax into that because it's really unfamiliar, and ego starts wanting to throw a tantrum.
Yep.
And it's like, no. But I need this, and if this isn't in order, then I'm not going to be able to relax. And it's like, yeah, who's the I that I'm identifying with in that situation, right? And so there's always the spontaneous motivation is always going to be there, but I always let it actually get to that point where I feel spontaneously moved to take care of it, instead of the forced motivation. Because as long as I'm borrowing dopamine, I'm digging myself a pit, and I'm going to keep digging that pit deeper and deeper and deeper as I borrow more dopamine. And that is, again, the trust of the spiritual guidance and the guidance of the heart that, like, when it needs to absolutely get done, it will.
Yeah.
It will. Right. And that's where I have to be like,
I'm sorry, I just picture Todd going home tonight.
yeah.
Todd, you gotta do the dishes. When they need to be done, they will be done.
I might not be Jackie's best friend after this, but again, like looking at this too, and like, my wife and I, relationships are not there to make us happy. Relationships are there to help us grow. A true relationship is going to make us uncomfortable at times. And, Ashley and I have gone through so many layers of stuff, and it's still like where I see something's not serving her. Like I'm speaking to it, and like we're going through and we're processing it, and she does the exact same thing for me. And that is like one item in particular of like, I challenge her when she gets into that, like, well, this needs to get done. Like, okay, who's the one defining that, right? I'll say that, and then she'll be like, oh, okay, no, you're right. It doesn't need to get done. I'm like, yeah, well, are you really called to it? It's like, yeah, okay, great, cool. I'm not. So, right, and again, it's not that I don't do anything. It'd be different if I was like,
you're not lying to yourself. That's
right,
for sure.
Right, and it's also I'm not lying to myself if I'm not, and like my wife's the first one to call me out if I'm not like showing up. Right, like but it's like she feels me there. I'm doing things when things need to get done, right? But we've gone through this really big breakdown process of our definition of need and where that comes from, right? And really looking at what is a want versus a need, right? Now, what I need is very limited, actually. I don't need very much. I can go 3-4 days without water. I can go a really long time without food. I can go a lot of minutes without air, especially with like Wim Hof breathing. So I start telling myself I need things. It's okay. Who are we identifying with? What language are we getting ourselves caught up in? Right. If there's a call, again, it's diff. It's like, I'm kind of feeling a call to, but it's not the same energy as like, okay, we really need to deal with this.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's the one saying that? right? And that's the not getting distracted thing,
Yeah.
right? It's not about like getting distracted from a task. It's about it's about staying aware
Yeah.
at what's in the field, right? Because Gollum is going to show up, or it's like Agent Smith in the Matrix. He's gonna show up. He's gonna show up through people. He's gonna show up through situations. Try to convince you there's something wrong with the moment, right? Try to convince you what it means about you as a person. Keep bonding you in the prison of the mind, right? And so if we're not aware of that part of reality, that's where we're gonna get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. We find ourselves being in service of everything.
Yeah.
That now we're Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
We're
just a gear in the cog and in the machine.
yeah, who am I serving? Right? I serve God. I serve God. So when I see somebody in ego, I'm going to help illuminate that, right? And at the very least, I'm going to recognize what they're in, and I'm going to pull my participation from it. Right? Because as soon as I participate in that, I'm now harmonizing with that, and I'm now aligning in that way of being. Right? And this is how we hurt ourselves like sheep, collectively and socially, because we're afraid to go against the grain, or we're afraid of what somebody else is going to think. And that's what traps us, right? So now all you got to do is get the majority of the herd to do something, and then the rest are going to follow because of a fear of social rejection, right? And again, it's not about rejecting somebody completely. It's just about not feeding what's not serving them, right? And it's a little bit like a dog. Like I'm not going to give a whole bunch of attention to an anxiety energy. Because it doesn't feel good to the dog to be in that overexcited energy, right? And if I bring attention to that state, I'm consolidating it, right? So as excited and as tempting as it is to join the dog and be so excited with the dog, I don't, because it doesn't feel good to them, right? So I pull my attention away until they settle. And then I come. Or maybe I'll feel an opening to kind of move in slowly and just like rub their chest or something and that maybe might help them calm. But sometimes I'm just called to just like, okay, they just got to calm down. And then, and it's the same thing with people, right? It's like, I'm not going to participate in you complaining about Trump because it's not serving you, right? So I might not even say anything, or I might have some remark to help you see that it's not, you're just giving your power to it. Maybe depends on the call in the moment, right? But I'm not going to start aligning with that. I'm going to, pick that up. Okay, no, I'm just going to stay here in my center, right? And then when there is an opening towards connection, true connection, I'm going to move into that, right? And then I'm going to pick up what I want in a relationship is somebody to pick up when I get pulled in, because we're not always aware of when we get grabbed by that. Right. And we start letting that in, we start coming under the influence. Right.
Yeah.
And we don't always pick it up immediately. Right. And so I love when people correct me. It's like, wait a minute, who's that? Who's that? Oh yeah. It's like, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good catch. Correct that. Right. So, yeah. And so that to me is like, we should be challenging each other in relationships, and that again is collectively how we're going to actually create a place that on a planet that is harmonic, is only if we can align with the truth of our essence. It's like a spiritual democracy. It's not about who we vote for. That doesn't do anything. We're creating a reality together from our collective being. So if we can help each other get back to our true essence, our entire world will be transformed. Right. And I think we're in a process of that already. And there's going to be a lot of change in the next 10 years, a lot of change, a lot of turmoil as well, because ego throws tantrums when ego is not getting its fix. Right. So we start taking the crack pipe away, and it's a tantrum. Right. We're going to see that on a collective level as well. We already are, the turmoil around the world. Right. But it's like helping remind each other who we are is, I think, the most important service. And that's where, again, we get distracted by the Mother Teresa purpose. And it's like, no, but look at right here, right now. You can be in service right here, right now, in this moment. You're a servant of this moment, because you don't even exist in that dream that you've dreamt up yet. It's just a dream. It's just an imaginary thing. It may come to fruition, and we can celebrate if it does. But right here, right now is what's important, right? So,
I guess there's like, just to go back to Todd's point, it's almost like there couldn't be more of a stark contrast about feeling like you have to do something and feeling like you want to do something, even for like someone else. Like, say you want to help clean the kitchen up. Like, that is such a different feeling than feeling like you have to, right?
100%.
Yeah, one like eats you up inside, and the
Yeah.
other one just happens naturally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one is obligation to an illusion, right? And that was, my first marriage. I did a lot of that. I fed in a lot, and I back in the day, I used to say like, oh, my wife was like, she had this obligation, and it was like I was giving into this obligation.
Yeah.
Right? I was taking responsibility, and it wasn't serving either of us, right? I should have said no more, right? And then again, it wouldn't have been like resentment, because it's like, well, you did this thing that I wanted you to do, but now it doesn't really feel that good because you didn't do it because you wanted to. And it's like, yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel good, right? And so if we can both sink into a place where we just let ourselves naturally be ourselves, and then let our reality unfold from that, it's liberation. It's liberation from all that obligation energy. And it's like, and we have to be willing to let people down. We have to be willing to let people down, because we are a mix of Gollum and spirit. And right, so we're gonna let Gollum down. If we're doing the work, we're gonna let Gollum down. We're not gonna let spirit down, right? And so that's always asking, like, who am I letting down, right? Am I letting down that energy that's looking for the crack pipe and has its wants and needs and desires and wants them all met and wants them all met right now? I need to let that part down, because it's not serving them. It's bonding them in a prison. So, yeah.
Was that answer all your questions?
I got more questions. It's getting late.
There's always going to be more questions. I think we got a lot out there
Yeah,
for
yeah.
everybody.
You guys got any finishing thoughts
I don't know.
here?
I'm just like replaying everything in my head now. I'm having trouble, like, I'm bouncing all over.
Yeah,
I gotta go home and like
Sit down and
sit down with it.
Let it sit.
Yeah.
Let it sit.
Yeah.
And again, the awareness is going to ping when you need it. But it is a completely, it's turning everything around in the way that we're used to doing things. Being rather than doing.
Yeah.
And in really deep layers of that. It's like the Matrix, it's totally.
That is not what you're taught your whole life.
no, we're
You're taught
not
you
at
should
all.
be doing something. Do this. There's no being, even from grade 1. It's
Well, there's nothing you
You
can even
know,
be
like-
called to when you're in grade 1, 2. You're just like told what to do.
Yeah, the education system is just a system of bondage. It does not. It's just breeding consumers, and it's the most important thing to me is the state of being that I'm in every moment.
yeah.
I won't deal with anything else. If anything is pulling me out of peace in my heart, I'm immediately dropping it, and I'm not re-engaging with it until I'm back into peace in my heart. The utterly most essential important thing in my life is that state, that place. Everything else is created from that place. So it should be the highest investment where we put our attention, is that. And again, it's okay to like allow, like, oh, there's that anger, right? Or there's, but coming back to that place and then looking at what unfolded and what you allowed to pull you from that, and what it was in you that allowed that to disturb you and influence you. And then you're going to become more and more and more and more and more dialed in to the point where your entire reality, nobody can stop it. Cops, government, nobody can stop it. Your reality is just going to be peace, constantly coming in. Peace, love, joy, and nobody's going to be able to interfere with it unless you let them.
Yeah.
Right, from leaving your center of being who you really are. So that's the take home message that I always have for everybody, is that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
If you want to create a reality for yourself of liberation, is you got to be it. And anything that stirs that up, you got to drop it. Yeah. And look at why you allowed it to stir you up. Take responsibility.
Yeah.
God bless.
God
Much
bless.
love.
Yeah.
God bless.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for everything you do too, Corey.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. It was
Yeah,
fun.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
it
have
was
to
a
do it
lot.
again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. It's probably like a 3-hour podcast.
I don't know. How long was it?
That's